Hi there, sweetheart. People study you like an evidence file they are afraid to open. You walk around rooms as if you're an idea they haven't been taught to identify, and every glimpse you steal is a tiny test they don't pass. They were instructed on how to measure who was allowed to talk and who had to whisper, and you showed up as a question that had no place on their exam. They rehearsed sympathy as a social currency, practiced their smiles like armor, learned how to play for power, and assumed that was enough. However, you came with a different curriculum. You showed up as an evaluation. Because being close to you is a test they were unaware they were taking. They refer to it as a privilege. It's an audit, not a compliment. Someone reveals a little more about themselves every second they are in your circle. A worried flick of the eyes, a practiced compliment, a stiff handshake. Keep an eye on them. Like coins at a toll booth, they give you their secrets. Awkward, but I'm sure you'll be amazed. You're not dazzled, though. You make a catalog. For the little betrayals people believe to remain private, you become an archivist. They'll think you're weak because of your restraint. For most people, that is their first calculation error. Absence is not the same as stillness. It's a machine. As you map the architecture of their intents, you allow them to speak. When they say you're quiet, they mean you're thinking in ways they don't know how to define. Your report card is the look of panic in the whites of their eyes. In their anxious skin, you are a weather of intelligence. They catch brief glimpses of you. A comment you made the previous week, a glance that split a conversation in two, or a lighthearted correction that challenges their presumptions. Every flash serves as a data point for you and a recalibration for them. Your appearance is not coincidental. You developed it in the same way that a surgeon develops a steady hand. You exercised self-control until your impulses became noticeable and manageable. The novels they ridiculed piqued your interest. They referred to the harsh reality as wrath and the late evenings as loneliness. You were referred to by numerous names. Chilly, far away, unreachable. They never considered giving you a name. Disciplined. Discipline does not equate to denial. It's money. You spend it in ways that cause the performer to go bankrupt. Because their panic is predictable, they will attempt 3 different strategies against you. The way a predator glitters bait will be flattered first. They'll come forward with compliments that smell like influence-based mortgages. Give them permission. A translucent curtain that trembles in response to a draft is called flattery. Because you can identify the stitch pattern, you can travel through without becoming tangled. You slowly tug until the fabric unravels because you can see the thread tying their intentions together. Secondly, they will use rumors to attack because it necessitates the conviction of others. Rumor is a clumsy tool. It is usually marked by terror. You let them to grow long enough to bloom ugly when they plant stories. Then you tend to the truth in a garden where their lies are as noticeable as weeds. Thirdly, they'll make absence a weapon. As if it were an indictment, they will yell for you to go. They will convince themselves that you are defeated since declaring victory would make them feel guilty. Additionally, audits are costly. Recognize this. It is not a favor to be able to stand close to you. Someone accepted the risk. Being close to you reveals courage just as fast as its brutality. Education will be provided to those who intend to study. Those who intended to imitate will be exposed. Your reflection is a test, and you are a mirror. They see the version of themselves they refuse to grow into when they gaze. Because it is true, that reflection is terrible. Because you are a diagnostic by nature, you are uncomfortable. Let them refer to it as conceit. They call the discomfort you cause to their brittle bluffs arrogance. Those who confuse volume for value are the ones who coined the term. You calibrate rather than swagger. Your movement has a temperament that is more concerned with maintaining the shape you intentionally took on than it is with domination. In order to maintain a higher geometry set of internal criteria that value dignity rather than applause, you turn down simple validation. People who watched you from a distance are envious of your height but don't want to climb. They want the crown without the loneliness, the view without the training. They will attempt to use your disappearance as proof of their triumph. Either she or he has left, they will act as though it is a defeat to leave. Often the only wise course of action is to leave. Not all cases of abandonment are terrible. It can be an instrument at times. They were supported by you in ways they said were reciprocal, so when you remove yourself, their structure crumbles. They will rush to describe your leaving in ways that will boost their self-esteem. Tales of controversy, disillusionment, and exhaustion. It's funny how their made-up justifications always prioritize their comfort over the reality of your boundaries. The dishonest are forced to pay taxes by your presence. Correction of the record requires attention. Rearranged rangers hag as wheat. They waste time attempting to replicate a discipline they are unable to replicate. Your economy is this. They're not very good at it. You have a lot of money. Wealth is determined by one's capacity to maintain cool in the face of criticism. You are aware of the actual cost of being present. It demands limits, the readiness to shut doors, and the unwavering upholding of norms. These are costly behaviors. Now the way you teach is brutal. It is not gratuitous, but it is precise, surgical, and unavoidable. For sport, you are not a tormentor. You are a conduit for consequences. If someone decides to play careless games with you, you will respond with consequences that are so obvious that the lesson is clear and memorable. They will never forget this dread. It's the lengthy, administratively inescapable list of reasons why their decisions resulted in those outcomes, not the instant you acknowledge them with a glance while they failed. When it comes to mistakes, you are patient, but when it comes to patterns, you are brutal. Either they will change or they will break. Some will attempt to acquire vocabulary and posture. They will call imitation sophistication and pretend to be competent. Imitation is not the same as rebirth. The inside job is done by those who are reborn in your orbit. To be honest, they cease requesting permission. They rehearse the difficult talks they used to avoid. They embrace consequences as the real instructor and allow them to mold them. Instead of performing in the room, these individuals become allies who stabilize it, because their content supports the architecture of truth rather than the theater of acceptance. They assist you in expanding the table. You have one last tool that scares them more than anything else. To reign, you don't have to destroy. Destruction is a blunt tool. Erasure-based rule is plain, loud, and ineffective. Recalibration is how you rule. Until their maps are no longer useful to them, you reshuffle expectations. When you depart, the surroundings are changed in a way that renders their previous successes meaningless. At first, such technique is invisible. At factual frequency, they will only notice a slight shift in temperature because it is so imperceptible. They won't understand the shape of their discomfort until much later and realize it stems from the standards you refuse to compromise, much like a room learns better manners. Listen to this clearly. You make the inside matter. Thus, being accepted into your circle is a luxury. Truth is multiplied and excuses are compressed by your closeness. People will pick up new verbs for shame if they believe that being close to someone gives them permission to act badly. They will be gently but unavoidably reminded that currency, integrity, consistency, and consequence are necessary for access. Those who arrive empty-handed will depart with lessons in their pockets and diminished reputations. Allow the grammar of every room you enter to be rearranged. People will whisper about the price of being near you if you make presence a discipline that is so identifiable. It's an honor. Allow them to express it as a warning or as a ledger. Entry cautions prospective members that membership is responsibility rather than comfort. Maintain your standards like a map that you only give to people who deserve to see it. Tell them the basic truth when they wonder why you're so harsh. You are shielding your life's architecture from compromise's gradual deterioration. When they attempt to characterize you through rumors, respond with a body of work so consistent that their chatter ages like cheap newsprint. When they attempt to reduce you to a spectacle, switch to a performance of constancy. Return is an event that clarifies rather than confuses when they use absence as a weapon, and let their own record be the answer when they later wonder why being close to you was so expensive. A privilege is not an award, it is a responsibility that an individual chooses to take on. Additionally, you will always charge admission as the curator of that liability. Be thoughtful. When tenderness is misinterpreted as weakness, be harsh. When honesty is appreciated, be gentle. Keep in mind that they are afraid of the unpredictable. A calm mind that observes patterns until significance is revealed is necessary for prediction, along with patience and aperture. You have that. In a fitted suit, you are methodical horror. You are the lesson that comes as a result and departs as a metamorphosis. Continue to teach them the hard way. Let privilege serve as a warning to one another. Take caution. People are altered by this closeness. By demanding more than they were prepared to provide, it transforms them. And let their remorse serve as the final test they neglected to prepare for when they eventually realize what you expected of them. An exam that you set in silence and then mercilessly graded. They will be performing your work for you when they disseminate the warning and inform others that being close to you is more expensive than they can afford. That is your strategy's genius. People preach the price, therefore the perimeter defends itself. Let that rumor serve as a barrier as much as an invitation. Shut doors firmly but gently. Only those with an honest ledger are allowed to open them. Let the tale of your closeness serve as both a promise and a deterrent. Be sage enough to go in, or honest enough to avoid it. You'll know the lesson has been learned when they murmur the warning. Allow them to choke on the fallout from and use the fact that they had to learn this lesson the hard way to serve as the thread connecting this section of the narrative to the next. You will only provide them with evidence when they ask for an explanation. Give them a ledger as an alibi when they ask for forgiveness. Let the record speak louder than the apologies when they say they were faithful, but then demonstrate differently. And they won't find a story that saves them when their conscience's cameras finally roll. They locate inventory. Continue to walk. Gather the information. Let them end up under the microscope that they use to direct at you in the following chapter. Then observe how their learning is different. They never considered the cost of being close to you, even if they wanted to study you. They believed that they could watch you without repercussions, as though curiosity had no burn rate. You rewrote the vocabulary they were using each time they attempted to define you. You demonstrated to them that comprehension is not free, perception is costly, pride is the price. To survive mediocrity, they had to tell themselves a few small falsehoods. They are now practicing prudence in your name as they go about. They murmur, be careful with them. Everyone who attempted to treat you lightly ended up rewriting their entire worldview, which is how it began as gossip and developed into governance. You don't use volume to intimidate, you disassemble precisely. That's what makes them uneasy. They are employed to propel those positions. Yours is the type that, with a courteous smile, does autopsy on deceit. They don't realize you're only timing the cut, and they mistake your silence for kindness. In actuality, you never spoke up. The bar was lifted by you, and half the room vanished when you did. Those who remained are acting as though they are not bleeding. Now there is the hierarchy. You didn't use titles to the Commander K. Use calibration when building it. Every choice you make reveals the distinction between noise and momentum. Observe how they recoil when you start a discussion. They sense the start of that unseen assessment, the one that exposes those who are merely memorized catchphrases and those who have real depth. You didn't become a member of a league. You eliminated the requirement for one. Those who are afraid of comparison are the ones who create leagues. Since competition presumes equality, you don't compete, you break things down. You watch, you change. You're counting variables while they're still counting followers. You're studying permanence while they're chasing relevancy. Ironically, the people who initially misjudged you now rely on the benchmarks you established. They emulate your stance, borrow your language, practice your discipline, and then question why the results don't translate. It's because it's theater to replicate without understanding. The clothing is theirs to take, but the consciousness is never theirs. Pain wasn't the only thing you learned, it was indexed by you. Every scar can be linked to a data-driven decision rather than an emotional one. They will never be able to match that edge. They react to danger. You react to patterns. When they are startled, they flail. Under the garb of patience, you are an architect from inevitability. They refer to you as dangerous because of this. It's not because you swing erratically, but rather because you never swing in the same spot twice. Mid-impact, you modify your trajectory. That scares those who only know how to replicate strategies that have previously been successful. You transformed empathy into reconnaissance and awareness into a weapon. Every stillness is a probe, and every interaction is a readout. Interrogation is not necessary. But by being like their cadence, tone, and excuse-making style all reveal their mental hierarchy. You keep it, examine it, and determine if they fall into a radius that has repercussions. They used to make fun of you. When you were silent and allowed them to speak without interruption, they assumed you were unimportant. The same detachment is now a security procedure. You remain untouchable because you came to a realization that they did not. Noise is not a weapon against chaos. Structure neutralizes it. Additionally, your structure is deadly because it is unseen until it is put into action. They believe you are an improviser. You're an engineer. There's architecture even in your pauses. They are not designed for that level. Authority is uneasy around you because of your calm demeanor, the kind that transforms leaders become learners, the kind that compels predators to look at their reflection before coming near. They are no longer even able to properly gossip about you. Before they can finish speaking, the story falls apart. They have too much discipline. The interpretations they employ are covert admissions. One person remarks, they don't react. Another comments, they call it coldness. You call it clarity. They call it ego. You call it boundaries. They call it luck. You call it work. They expose their shortcomings. Seeing them attempt to categorize you in order to avoid the reality of your existence is almost touch. Tenderness, however, does not equate to excess. It's a diagnosis. You can only feel sorry for people who depend on delusion for survival. You nevertheless extend the courtesy of a warning to them. Each time you walk into a room, you give them one last opportunity to get up before the consequences set in. It's accountability, not haughtiness. You give them an opportunity to adjust their posture, balance their energy, and adjust their tone. The natural laws you embody take care of the rest if they don't. Their subconscious feels exposed and panics as the discussion changes and the air thickens. That isn't mysticism, it's mathematical. Integrity is important. Constellations could be rearranged by yours. They're having to learn it the hard way. They do it every time. They believe that being close to you would make them unique. Rather, it increased their self-awareness that was merited to acknowledge that you've always been ordinary. That is the cruelty of being close to greatness. And the only thing that makes you cruel is that your very existence speaks the truth. You make work seem embarrassing and excellence seem effortless. You broadcast a sermon each time you carry out a decision in a clean manner. When discipline takes the place of desire, this is what occurs. It comes. You don't chase it. You define, not demand. And as a result, the hierarchy shifts before you even say a word. They refer to it as presence, energy, or aura. Actually, it's data. Inefficiency cannot exist around you since you have optimized yourself so mercilessly. Those who are unprepared feel choked. The indolent feel threatened, and the dishonest feel exposed. It wasn't your intention to frighten them. Excuses have just been eliminated from the ecology. The survivors will either change or dissipate. The new night, you're a conscience-driven evolution. They won't stop testing you, though. Let's face it, they are unable to. The fact that you bleed like they do must be verified by something in their wiring. They will prod, poke, and provoke as they wait for fissures to show. To demonstrate that you are still mortal, they want to see fury. Anger, however, is out of date. You conduct business calmly. You now react in a way that is so effective that people mistake it for prophecy. At that point, the terror shifts from being afraid of you to being afraid of themselves in comparison to you. In your absence, they begin policing their own words, questioning the morality of their gossip, and changing their behavior before they even get to meet you. In their decision-making, you live rent-free. That's not celebrity. Governance is that. Self-awareness has become surveillance. They are also being watched. The more they observe you, the more they see how pointless imitation is. Because spectacle is not the source of this degree of power. It originates in architecture. You constructed yourself from the inside out. This implies that you cannot be collapsed by an outside force. There isn't a crack to take advantage of, so their jealousy has nowhere to land. That's what makes them insane. They are unable to participate, win, or ignore. Worship masquerading as criticism is all that remains. Because expressing admiration feels like giving up, they will refer to you as intimidating. Give them permission. Their prison is their language. You don't require their approval. Impact has become a natural byproduct of your actions. Your self-control has created a doctrine of its own. These days, entire social circles adjust their tone according to your possible interpretation. They are afraid of that degree of dominance. The regulation is silent. Precision always takes command even though you never requested it. When the most disciplined person in the room is acknowledged, it's inevitable. They alternate between envy and imitation because they are unable to decide whether to compete or confess. Since steadiness is the ultimate form of intimidation, you stay steady. They confuse patience with passivity, but patience is the key to sharpening a blade. Every holdup is a tactic. Every retreat is a reconnaissance operation. You make a recording. You never blow up. You carry it out. That's what distinguishes different species. They react when someone insults them. You react to insight. They long to be seen. You yearn for outcomes. Your presence redefines what it means to be in a league. Consensus is the foundation of leagues. Consequences shape who you are. They have committees. You're convinced. They manage campaigns. You perform calligraphy. Because you're not participating in a public game, they are unable to compete. You're experimenting with mastery in private. You gather information about your own responses on a daily basis. Then you refine, reduce, and rebuild. Instead of using emotion as a steering wheel, you use it as a sensor. Emotion is viewed as a destination by them. They crash because of this. They can't even start the car you're driving. They will call you unrelatable. Of course you are. Relatability is comfort. You are confrontation. You confront what people hide from themselves. Every glance of yours is a mirror they can't edit. Every word you drop becomes a pulse in their conscience. That's how you lead without trying. Leadership is not volume, it's vibration. You altered the frequency of expectation itself. Those who enter your field of influence either recalibrate or disintegrate. There's no middle ground, no safe observation deck. Even your critics end up quoting you eventually, adopting fragments of your discipline just to survive the reflection you cast. And that's the most satisfying victory, the one where they evolved accidentally through exposure. The ones who resist, though, the ones who keep pretending equality where there is none, will break publicly. They'll implode under the pressure of their own performance. You won't have to lift a finger. Time is your enforcer. Truth is your accomplice. The world will watch as those who mocked your discipline get eaten alive by their own inconsistency. That's poetic justice, but it's also science. Systems collapse when the energy sustaining the lie runs out. You are a renewable resource. They are a fossil fuel. You keep regenerating while they exhaust themselves. It's a privilege to be in your presence because presence around you requires endurance. The weak will call it hostility, but the strong recognize it as refinement. You refine everything you touch. Even silence becomes sermon. Even rest becomes ritual. They can't imitate that because it requires accountability. And accountability is a language few speak fluently. So they gossip in dialects of envy. While you write scripture in results, let them. Every rumor is unpaid advertising for your evolution. Every insult is a free audit revealing where they stand. You collect it all and move forward unburdened. You understand something crucially. Domination isn't sustained by aggression. It is maintained by inevitability of standard. You have become the standard. That's why they tremble. The danger of your presence isn't violence, it's reflection. It forces them to see the parts of themselves they edited out for applause. That mirror burns hotter than revenge. You could destroy them with words, but you prefer the slow burn of consequence. That's artistry. To make someone rewrite their own. You've done it enough times that legends circulate now. They exaggerate details to survive the embarrassment of having underestimated you. They mythologize your calm, dramatize your exits, deify your boundaries. Anything to make sense of why they couldn't manipulate you. Let them construct folklore. It saves them from admitting failure. Meanwhile, you continue. You operate on timelines they can't comprehend. Your calendar isn't days, it's evolutions. While they count followers, you count fulfilled intentions. While they rehearse applause, you refine process. That's the difference between activity and ascension. You weaponize purpose so effectively that proximity to you becomes purification. People either rise or rust. The cost of admission is that. They advise being cautious with them because of this. It's not fear. It's acknowledging the consequences. You are a human version of a moving accountability test. Mishandling you is an invitation to be exposed. Additionally, they are aware that exposure kills those who rely on deceit to survive. In an attempt to contain what cannot be contained, they now whisper warnings. But when the lesson turns into a culture, containment fails. You've evolved into a culture. Not in their league is not a sign of haughtiness. It's math. Parity is necessary in leagues, and the day you decided to prioritize discipline over drama, par died. Allow them to observe your techniques. Because they are unable to understand your variables, they will still make incorrect calculations. Isolation, constancy, and constant self-evaluation. These are equations, not characteristics. And you've solved for chaos so thoroughly that in your immediate vicinity, even chance seems predictable. When power reaches adulthood, it looks like that. It begins programming after ceasing to perform. The world around you has been programmed to treat you in accordance with the standards you have exhibited. Every response demonstrates that they are adhering to your code even though they are unaware of it. Don't change it. While you are aware of its design, let them follow their instincts. Unseen authorship is the ultimate developments. The next stage then starts. Quieter precision rather than a louder presence. Because every action you take now will completely change the meaning of the league, and they will feel the floor tilt beneath them as consequence takes its proper place next to you, even if they continue to pretend to be equal. The cost of admission is the privilege of being present. You'll sense the shift to the next chapter where awareness itself becomes command and command clones legacy. As that realization grows, at this point, dominance becomes a rhythm rather than a reaction. Justice is you is no longer important. Who can put up with you is the key. Most won't. To feel validated, they will attempt to stand beside you. However, those who lack discipline are burned by proximity. You don't have a decorative aura. It's a diagnostic tool. It looks for any insecurity, deceptive tone, or motivation betrays. Someone's own reflection betrays them the instant they approach. Someone's own reflection betrays them the instant they approach. You don't even speak. They refer to it as intimidation because of this. However, it is truly a revelation. You're not intimidating. Simply put, they're not ready for accuracy. People are not threatened by you. You reveal their true selves to them, and that's what causes them to fall apart. Your composure has authority, and the world begins to realign around it. You've developed into a principle that transcends personality. Gravity shifts as you enter new areas. It's not because you're conceited, but rather because you've mastered reaction control, something that most people avoid. You don't take part in chaos anymore. You control it from the outside. They are now having to learn this the hard way. Every effort to agitate you backfires. Because you are no longer able to move from emotion, every trap collapses under its own design. From observation, you proceed. The impulsive are unnerved by the way you've transformed patience into a violent act. They want spectacle, but you make them pay for it. They expected you to shatter, but instead they witnessed your flawless, silent growth, which made their noise seem ridiculous. You're teaching them that true power doesn't manifest itself, it is sensed. And there's a price for how you feel now: responsibility. That is the cost for anyone who interacts with you. They either become more like you or become overwhelmed by self-awareness. Being in your presence now serves as a kind of initiation. It distinguishes between people who are ready to function clearly and those who are dependent on chaos. Every exam, every conversation, and every handshake is a filter. You don't even have to let anyone down. Their lack of depth disqualifies them. They used to believe they could use charm to get past your gates, but charm has an expiration date. Substance does not. They consistently fail to learn that lesson. Anyone who doesn't meet the sincerity requirement has been denied. The atmosphere around you has been altered by that choice. Your name is now spoken cautiously. Admiration itself sounds like a confession. They murmur that they are different. However, their true meaning is that we are unable to act fake around them. You currently wear that quiet crown, the one composed of discernment and moderation. It glows instead of glittering. Applause won't be the foundation of your legacy. From awareness, it will be constructed. You've turned into a case study of what happens when someone begins studying vibration instead of seeking approval. Every action, statement, and glance is deliberate. It is so deliberate that it alters everyone's behavior. You've made refinement terrifying because it serves as a reminder of how much self-control mediocrity needs to survive. Distance was once mistaken for ego, but it is now referred to as divinity. It is a poetic irony. I now refer to you as a standard by the same people who previously thought you were too much. That is the price of being correct too soon. They had not yet developed the ability to hear the frequencies you were using. They now adjust themselves only to pick up on your thoughts. But keep in mind that authority such as yours does not necessitate deference. It naturally gathers it. Additionally, fragile egos react more strongly the more it accumulates. You'll notice their practiced humility, their strategic compliments, and their sudden politeness. All of it is self-defense. They're not being considerate, they are being cautious. They finally understood that there's a penalty clause for mistreating you. Every falsehood directed to you ages in public audit. Every betrayal becomes a public audit. Every ounce of effort they expended attempting to mislead you serves as proof of their own demise. You are not even required to exact revenge on yourself. For those who act truthfully, the universe takes care of it on its own. On schedule, you've turned into a living example of karma. That's the real meaning of being out of their league. It has nothing to do with superiority. It has to do with stability. In a world that can't stop spinning while they burn out performing important roles, you've become the fixed point. You stay rooted in your mission. You don't pursue. Alignment is drawn to you. You don't ask for allegiance. You motivate it with accuracy. Because chaos has no place there, people feel safer in your presence. Being both trusted and feared at the same time is uncommon. However, you are now that. They are unable to comprehend the paradox. Too kind to be malevolent, too cunning to be gullible. The polarity that breaks most people is something you've mastered. The world is unsure of what to call you as a result. You are referred to as dangerous by some and divine by others. In any case, they carefully spell your name, give them the opportunity to learn, allow them to continue learning what occurs when presence turns into principle. This is the more profound reality. You don't demand caution from others out of conceit. It's out of order that you demand it. You are an incarnation of order. You stand for discipline, structure, and alignment. One of the two must adjust when chaos and order coexist. Additionally, adaptation becomes their burden because you've outgrown collapse. The true benefit of being close to you is that Evolution is forced by it. Growth has become contagious thanks to you. You've transformed awareness into oxygen. People who are unable to breathe it choke on their own immobility. You reminded them of everything they could have become if they had your accuracy, which is why they eventually crawl away and blame you for their discomfort. However, accuracy is acquired rather than inherited. Through self-surgery, silence, and scars, you earned it. You confronted every aspect of yourself that people with weaker minds avoid. You dissected your own ego until it was no longer a dictator but rather a tool. Instead of undermining your intellect, you trained your emotions to support it. Because of this, you can now use logic as armor and empathy as a blade. They are unable to match that since it is evolution rather than performance. You are living proof that the most terrifying kind of dominance is transformation. They are not able to duplicate the frequency of mastery, but they can mimic aesthetics. And that's what makes them shudder, because you become louder without speaking each time they attempt to diminish you. Therefore, be cautious when they whisper warnings about you. Recognize that it is no longer gossip. It's the gospel. The truth they discovered too late is being preached by them. Their perception was altered when they unintentionally came into contact with your energy. Some improved as a result of it. None remained unchanged, but others broke. That is the effect of a presence that doesn't compromise its value. You're not here to win people over, you're here to be understood. Even that is not required. Because understanding is also a privilege, the real ones will adapt, the others will run away. In either case, you prevail. Remember that dominance was never your aim as this last act comes to an end. It was a byproduct of mastery. It was not your intention to be superior to them. Your goal was to be limitless. You became the benchmark, the norm, and the cautionary tale. Everyone who encounters you now has a new rule in their minds. Take caution. Don't do this one incorrectly. Their instincts have been reprogrammed by you. That's what it means to truly be in your own league. You're not in a competition. Reality is being conditioned by you. You've transformed awareness into command, presence into pedagogy, and energy into empire. They are still inexorably, painfully, and beautifully learning it. Ultimately, the caution they murmur is not limited to other people. They do it for themselves. They are discovering that you were more than just an individual. The test was views, and the answers to all the questions were the same. Be respectful.